Good morning, everybody. My name is Merritt, and I am the founder of Master of One Coaching. And I come to you live every Friday morning, 10 o'clock Eastern Time, to talk about leadership and the trends in leadership. And also, I get the privilege of bringing my friends and colleagues and people I admire onto this fun little project. And one of these amazing people that I'm so excited to talk to today is Brittany Proia. Good morning, Brittany.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me, Merritt.
You bet. And Brittany is now you told me multi-hyphenate. Hyphenate. There we go. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Theater maker. And I'm going to let you talk a little bit more about what that means specifically for those out there in social media land that may be curious about that. So we always start these conversations with me asking you about your story. So tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got to where you are.
Sure. I guess I'll start with the hyphen. When I was a kid, I was taught, growing up, being trained in the theater world, I was sort of taught that you had to pick one thing and get really good at that one specific thing, and that there wasn't space for you to do multiple things, because if you do multiple things, you're not going to be good at them, so you have to pick one thing. And I was never good at that. I started in opera, and then I started performing in new musicals, like contemporary musical theater, and then I wanted to do jazz voice, and then I wanted to be an actor and do Shakespeare, and then I wanted to produce, and then I wanted to direct, and now I love being an educator. So in that way, I am a multi-hyphenate theater maker. I love live theater so much. I just want to be on all sides of the table at all times. So that's what I do now, and how I sort of came there. I'm from Maryland originally. I am the child of two scientists.
Oh my!
Yes. So I've always had a very strong, or at least I think it's strong, rational and logical part of my brain. I think it's from the science background. But my parents put me into theater camps when I was a kid because I was very, very shy, and experiencing theater both on stage and as an audience member really gave me tools. It taught me emotional intelligence. It really helped me come out of my shell. And even now, I consider myself an extroverted introvert. Like I love my alone time, but I can also get on stage and perform, or I can get in front of a classroom or in front of a concert hall or whatever I have to do. And my grandmother was an opera singer, so it was very important to her that I was exposed to the arts very, very early. But again, like I just love making theater so much, and I'm kind of impatient. So I don't like asking for permission to do things.
Yeah.
And I find, like, when you are an actor, when you're a performer, a lot of your career is spent sort of asking permission and going to auditions and waiting to be told that, okay, now I'm going to let you make your art. Now I'm going to let you do your thing. And I was never really good at that. I just kind of wanted to make things. So when I was a kid, I would put on shows in my backyard where my neighbors and I would lip sync to Disney movies, and people would actually come, which is crazy. And then when I was in college, in my opera program, I wanted to do Shakespeare, but there was no infrastructure for us to do Shakespeare in my program. So me and a group of students, we fundraised, we rented a black box in downtown Manhattan, and we put up Romeo and Juliet, and that's what we did. And that's sort of been, I've been lucky enough to travel around the country, which is what I'm doing right now. I'm in Winona, Minnesota, performing Shakespeare with the Great River Shakespeare Festival, which is wonderful. And I'm on stage, which is fabulous. But this past year, I was teaching at SUNY New Paltz in the theater department, and I was lucky enough to direct 2 shows. And I'm creative producer for 3 playwrights right now. So I'm helping them develop their work and hopefully get it to a production stage. So I just love storytelling, and I love live theater. I think it's so important. and it's one of my great joys. So I'm doing it as much as I can in as many ways as I can.
Well, and it's so interesting. I didn't know all of the nuances of that story, but you and I have a lot in common.
Oh, yes, we do. Oh, yes, we do.
I mean, we do in many, many ways. We talked about that, but that specific part of the story where you said, I didn't want to wait for somebody else to tell me that I could, make what I want to make. I mean, that's exactly the thought process that I went through when I graduated from my theater program and decided to start making my own work. So
yeah,
some of us are very good at strategically positioning ourselves for the right roles and waiting for that and being patient for the right opportunity to come on. Some of us are not. Some of us
yeah, and also I think as people who are trained as artists, we many programs, and I am hopeful, and I'm seeing a shift in this, but so many artists aren't really trained to be strategic or to be business savvy or to be good marketers or PR people, which is, you are a business as a performer, director, whatever it is that you are doing, you are a business. And so often people aren't given the tools to do that. So we have to kind of get scrappy and figure it out on our own. And something that I'm passionate about is giving that power, knowledge, confidence to my students so that they don't have to wait for permission. Of course, audition. If you want to audition.
Yeah.
It's part of the business. But also, if you're really passionate about something, you can make it happen. It is possible.
I always say that the best training I got from anybody can get in life is through the theater, because you learn how to be a human being. You learn how to collaborate. If you are lucky enough and driven enough to produce your own work, then you learn all kinds of, right, whether it's for profit or nonprofit. I mean, there's just, one of the tenets of great leadership in my mind that I talk to my clients about all the time and students about all the time is, 90% of great leadership is hiring well and getting out of the way. And I definitely learned that in the theater. And I see that you are frozen again, Brittany.
Oh, no.
You're back. Wait. Oh no. She might come out and join us in a second again, because we're having a little bit of a connectivity issue. But at any rate, it is an amazing, incredible training to go through a theater program, an arts program for life, for being a human being. And I think that Brittany and I both share that value. Let's see. Oh, there you are. She's back. Okay. So tell me a little bit more about... Oh no, I think you might be frozen again.
Am I back?
There you go. Okay. So tell me a little bit more about how you, because I know that teaching is very important to you, and I know that mentoring and sort of shepherding the next generation of not just theater makers, but humans is important to you. So tell me a little bit about how that connects for you as a mission.
So many ways. I am a big believer in being of service. And even in my leadership style, I am a servant leader. I'm not command and control. I'm not, a cult of personality or whatever other versions they are. I believe in being of service. And I've thought about this. I thought about this a lot, especially during the pandemic, of like, what am I doing to make this world better and better than I found it? I remember I ran into an actor friend of mine, very, very talented, a few years ago, and he said that he was leaving the business. And I was like, why are you leaving the business? And he said, well, I am going to become an environmental scientist because I want to change the world. And I was like, oh my God, what am I doing? Like, should I like go back to school and become, a doctor or something so I can be more of service? And I really thought about it. And I was like, no, like I truly believe that arts are transformative in so many ways. And they are one of the vestiges of early humankind. I mean, storytelling has been around forever, and experiencing it as an audience member, experiencing experience it on stage is such a powerful thing. And there's scientific studies that say that people who are in the audience together, their heartbeats synchronize, their breath synchronizes, people who are on stage as well. The kind of emotional intelligence, the kind of empathy that it builds is so important for us, especially in a world where you can watch Netflix anywhere at any time. A world where we are separating so much. To actually bring people together is so important. And I also, performing, making art, whatever it is that you do, is so healing. So I want to make it accessible for everybody. I want to make it so you can pay $0, you can pay $100, whatever you can to experience live theater. And that's kind of my mission, is to find a way to make it sustainable in a regional theater model, because I love regional theater. I grew up doing regional theater, and to make it so that anybody can experience it. Mm-hmm. And I don't have all the answers right now, but that's something that I'm trying to give to the students that I mentor. That's something that I'm trying to, make in our community. We might talk about this later, but I'm working right now in the very beginning stages of creating some sort of collective where theater makers, theater artists, theater technicians in the Hudson Valley region that I love so much can all connect and help each other. And we can really sort of fortify this creative hub that is the Hudson Valley and all get connected. So I'm working on that right now too.
Amazing. Yeah, we will definitely touch on that in a minute. I wanted to bring special attention though to something you said about accessibility. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I don't think we can have a complete conversation today without talking about, holy cow, the last 18 months and what has happened to live events. Yes. Tell me about your experiences. I mean, I have, I can sort of pontificate about what I've observed, but tell me from the inside, what has that experience been like for you, and what have you seen change and evolve and adjust?
I guess there's two sort of facets to that, like me as an individual and what I'm seeing in the theater industry. So like me as a human and me as a theater maker. I think a very established producer told me this year that whenever there is a time when the arts sort of aren't as important as other things, there's like a dip in our humanity, in our empathy, sort of as a collective. And we haven't been in community. We haven't been creating in 18 months. So, or at least in a community sort of way, maybe as individuals, hopefully we've been keeping up with our artist selves, but it's been very, very hard. So that is disheartening, that I think we all can see how, on these social media platforms, on the news, that people are just sort of separating and othering each other and not able to understand other people. Mm-hmm. And that's why theater is so important. That's why coming together, that's why community is so important, because it builds that empathy. So I think it's very, very important that we make people feel comfortable, that we make it accessible, that we reach out into communities, as opposed to being sort of this thing that only the privileged, only the people with money can experience. So I'm over that, and like survive if we continue in that model and that mindset.
There's something that it's just real quick. There's something that our colleague and friend in common, Denise Summerford, said towards the beginning of the pandemic shutdown, and I can't remember, she posted it somewhere on Facebook, I think, and she said something to the effect of, just remember, because we're all talking about like, oh, we're gonna binge shows and we're Netflix and all this stuff. Just remember that at the other side of this, that it was the arts that got you through it.
Yes.
So good, right? Because it is exactly what you're talking about. It's like that's where we find comfort. It's where we find relief. It's where we find escape. It's where we find growth and challenge and education. And right, I mean, thank goodness that so many of us have access to all these amazing products. These are art products, and also and the people have still, it wasn't very long after the shutdown that people started finding ways to adapt to, protocols, and, whether it was doing Zoom productions or filming where they had to isolate and quarantine for 2 weeks so that everybody on the cast and crew could come. I think the Great British Bake Off did that.
Yeah.
They all quarantined first, and then they came together, and then they all quarantined as a production company and I think they did it on a accelerated timeline. So they could, but right? Who would have thunk?
No, and the film and television industry, I give SAG so much love, because they figured it out. They figured out how to do it safely. And live theater is a different beast. Yeah. And it's crazy to think that there was zero theater happening.
It is crazy.
For so long. It just boggles my mind. I think the longest that Broadway had ever been shut down before was maybe 3 days.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Was that during maybe 9/11 or something?
I think so. Or maybe it was in around the Great Depression or something like that. I can't quite remember, but 3 days.
Wow. And so what have you seen are some of the gifts of this giant pause in production and creating?
Reflection, kind of self-observation and examination on lots of levels. I think another way that I admire and relate to you so much is I am a product of hustle culture. And I moved to New York City when I was 17, and my apartment was a place to rest, and then I would leave and go, and busyness was cool. And if I had to stay up all night to finish a project, oh yeah, I'm so proud of myself for doing that, for not having good boundaries.
Right.
Yeah. And I'd been going and going and going and going and going for so long, and all of a sudden it was all gone. And I had to sort of, all of us, I think all theater makers and all humans kind of had to say, oh, okay, who am I? What is my purpose outside of my job? And what is my life, and what do I love? And just getting back in touch with those things. And if theater should explode and it shouldn't exist, who am I? And so I started kind of rebuilding that, figuring out who I am, what I love, what I am outside of what I do. And I sort of made a commitment to myself that I was going to build my career around my life as opposed to my life around my career, which is how I'd been thinking for so long, that this career is so important that I'm going to make sacrifices. I'm going to miss weddings. I'm going to miss funerals. I'm going to put aside my life goals for this thing. Whereas now I'm sort of thinking about it the other way. It's I want to build a strong foundation. I want to have a life that I love. I want to have an oasis to come home to. I want to have really strong relationships. And then I'm going to find a way to make my career fit around that. Yeah. And it's more possible than I thought it was.
Yeah. And I think that's not unique to the arts. That's happening for everybody, or at least everybody who has, I want to say everybody around. And that's hard to say because some people don't have, or they don't feel they have the luxury of making that kind of reflection. But at any rate, last week I talked about this phenomenon that economists are projecting for September of this year. They're calling it the Great Resignation. And it is, and you smile, it's fascinating and a little terrifying for people who are employers because they're projecting up to 94% of retail businesses, that includes restaurants and things like that, will be short-staffed, 94%. And 41% of people will be quitting their jobs or have already quit their jobs, or who will not return to work after this shutdown is when they start to kind of bring back these back into office practices that were in place before. And, the first question around that is often, well, is it because everyone's on the dole, right? The unemployment. And the studies are indicating the opposite. The studies are actually indicating exactly what you just pointed to, which is that we are no longer, as a culture, willing to sacrifice our well-being, our relationships, and our connection to our own humanity and that of others, in pursuit of the almighty dollar or the almighty achievement, right?
Yeah. And that idea of like, what is success?
Mm-hmm.
What is success? Is success being the highest paid person that maybe has no friends, no family, whatever? Is that the goal? Or is it, and I'm not saying that, I think you can still be very successful and not butt off.
Definitely.
Or is it being the person that has a strong community and a family and can have experienced the world, have experiences, make art, and take in art? What is success to you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And 100%, we can have all of that. This doesn't have to be an either or. Mm-hmm. And we have to do that with intention, with mindfulness, with a little bit of strategy, with a lot of flexibility, and with our values and our sense of purpose at the center of every decision we make.
Yes.
And that's how we build a life like that. This Susan Munyon.
Yeah. Hi, Susan.
Says that she loves that reflection.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining, Susan. Love to see you. All right, Brittany. So let's talk a little bit more about what's happening next for you. So you're in Minnesota and you're going to come back to the Hudson Valley.
Yes, I am. Minnesota is beautiful, but I cannot wait to come back to the Hudson Valley. My partner is there right now, and he said how absolutely beautiful it is. So I can't wait. Can't wait to come back.
Crazy green here right now because we've had an inordinate amount of
rain. Storms. Yeah, that's what I heard.
Lightning and thunder and lots of rain. But so tell us about what you're going to be doing when you come back. You are going back to SUNY New Paltz as
I'm going back to SUNY New Paltz. I'm teaching a few courses there. I'm teaching some musical theater courses, which is going to be so much fun. I'm a voice nerd. I love all things vocal, speech, and singing. So that will be fun. And I'm teaching an acting class for non-majors, which is like you said, I know, like you said earlier, theater is so good for everyone. Mm-hmm. So I'm really excited to sort of people whose maybe main interest isn't being a performer, director, designer, whatever, to sort of give them a taste of what it feels like to nurture your inner artist and give them the skills that in those wonderful theater making skills. So I'm excited about that. I'm also, as a creative producer, I'm working with a playwright right now, Genevieve Simone, and we're taking one of her plays to Arts on Site, a retreat center, which is in Hudson. So I'm bringing up, I guess it's like 8 artists from New York City to that retreat center to help develop that play. Very excited about that. And I am taking the steps to sort of create this theater collective, coalition, whatever it ends up being called, and hopefully organizing a big combined Hudson Valley audition. So bringing all of the theater companies, the organizations that create theater together, connecting them with local theater artists, local designers, local technicians, and bring them all together so that they can create, so that they can know each other and create. Theater is an economic engine, and there is a workforce there, and where there is theater and theater experiences happening, people go to local restaurants, people go shopping at local boutiques. Having the arts is good for everybody, and especially now in a time where things have been so difficult for local businesses for so long. I think not only it can help theater artists, but it can help the local economy as well.
I have a question for you and we sort of touched on this before, about the emergence of the desire or the seeing, like, I mean, when a football player, like when a quarterback is looking for the hole to throw the pass down or to run through to get the touchdown. Similarly, when we see opportunity in the midst of this kind of chaotic activity happening, and we can't, what we see is sort of that clean hole to run through or to throw through. Where was that for you? I mean, you mentioned about not wanting to just be out to be at the mercy of other people hiring you, but to want to create your own work.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're emerging into this. You have also already several times over actually emerged into a leadership role through various venues here locally and other places. What was the catalyst for that for you, to like see that opportunity and go, yes, I want to be the one that does that? Like I see there's an opportunity for a network here, a regional audition for a collaborative enterprise where we can bring all of these, theater practitioners together. What was the impetus for you to say, I want to be the one to step into that role and make that happen?
That's a good question.
Do you know?
Something that I am very proud of, a trait of mine that I am very proud of, is that I execute things. I like to execute things. Yes, talking about things is great. And it's important. Brainstorming is important. But in my life, it's similar to asking for permission to do things and doing it yourself. We can talk about how great it would be to do Romeo and Juliet. So let's just do it, And I think that's another thing that theater has taught me, is this like cultivating the courage, bravery muscle, which is something that I try to teach.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. Write that down.
It's going to be hard and it's going to be scary, but like, let's do it anyway, and no, the ultimate imposter syndrome. Nobody knows what they're doing. We're all in this together. We're all figuring it out. You can't wait until you have that MBA or you have whatever it is that you need to do it. So like, as long as you're not, it's coming from the right place, kind of like you said, like it's from your core mission, vision, values. Do it. So I'm an executor, and I was in a lot of Zoom rooms over the past 18 months where people were talking about, if you could have anything, what would it be? I work with the Dramatists Guild as well, which is an organization that supports playwrights. And in a lot of these Zoom rooms, people were talking about, if you could have anything in this region, what would it be? And in so many of those rooms at Dramatists Guild and otherwise, people were talking about, like, wouldn't it be great if there was a place where all the theaters could talk to each other and where we could talk to the theater companies and where we could all connect and we could share resources and have a newsletter and, a master calendar and all of these things. And I was like, that sounds great. So let's do it. Let's do it.
And then you hear crickets, right?
Yeah. And I've found some amazing local collaborators, some arts administrators, and just folks in the arts that say, okay, let me know what you need, and I'll help. So yeah, I think it's just taking that first step, being the person to jump off the cliff. Mm-hmm. Every project needs that person, and I'm happy to be that.
And where do you think you learned that? Was that something that you were taught as a kid? Was that something you said you learned it partially in theater too? But there's something that sounds like it's more intrinsic in you, or was instilled in you early. Where do you think that comes from? I'm asking that because a lot of people get to the point where and even just today, I was talking to a client who is incredibly accomplished, and he said the scariest thing about this next step is that I need to get the courage. And like, I know how to do it, but the courage to do it is the hardest part. And this is something who has been like an amazing career and, does very, very well in life and has incredible accomplishments. And yet still as humans, we get tripped up on this courage piece. So where is it? What's the mechanism that you have that people can look to?
I mean, I guess I'll go back to my parents, because I'm sure that I'm certain that this was behavior modeled to me. My dad was the first person in his family to go to college, I believe, and then went on to get a PhD, and it has now worked at NIH for 30 years and is one of the top experts in his field. So there's a lot of risk there. My mother as well, both of them sort of instilled the courage in me, because I think perhaps it wasn't as intrinsic to them. Especially my mother, I think, comes from a generation of not wanting to rock the boat, of, being, making sure that everybody else is okay rather than yourself. So kind of instilling like, no, you can speak for yourself. You can do this. So that, and also, I feel like it's kind of like dating. Like if you haven't had your heart broken a few times, then it's harder to get out and do the dating game. Yeah, it's like experiencing failure on any sort of echelon. It's a learning thing, and the more that you try and it doesn't work, or it does work, or it kind of works, the more that your brain sort of is like, oh, okay, and the more that you learn and you get that feedback loop, so the easier it is to take those steps, because you realize that it's not actually that bad. That if I work really hard on this one thing and it doesn't succeed, my life doesn't really change. I just go on to the next thing.
Yeah.
I think.
And I'm not putting you on the spot because we didn't talk about that ahead of time, but I just think it's fascinating. And so many people who watch this series are in leadership roles and also are interested in the development of us as humans and the choices that people make, whether we're mentoring other people to do that or that we're continuing on our own path, or a combination of those things. And so there's all kinds of interesting neuroscience about this topic too, like resilience and failure and all that stuff. That, like, how do we the jumping off the cliff metaphor?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Of like where does that moment where we decide it's going to be okay? You know, our threat assessment, our internal threat assessment, like kind of kicks in that gear. And how do we walk ourselves back from that to understand that it's not a life or death choice? It's just a choice that we're making to follow a decision. All of that stuff is just fascinating. And I think that, so I like to kind of pull that apart a little bit in people who have cultivated the courage and bravery muscle, which I put in the comments because I think it's a great way to put it.
Cool. Yeah. And I mean, theater training is great. Improv is great for that. And now there are all sorts of programs that like bring improvisation classes into the corporate environment because they are so useful. And that idea of failure and sort of code switching that to, you know, I also broke through in auditioning, like as an actor, I broke through because I was putting so much of my worth on other people and like going into a room and being vulnerable and being told no, I would take that so personally. And then I don't know exactly what happened. I think I watched like a YouTube video of Bryan Cranston talking about his career, and because he kind of didn't hit it until mid to late 30s, I think.
Yeah.
He said, I just take every opportunity to do my work as an opportunity to do my work. So if you have 2 minutes in a room, then you get to do what you love for 2 minutes and leave. And I was like, oh, yeah, I do. So I just do that. I do that. And if I make a connection and something happens, great. And I will pursue that. But if not, then I get to do what I love for however long.
And that's a mindset piece, right? That is 80% mindset and 20% what actually happens is how we kind of view success.
Yeah.
And if that mindset piece it's really just a matter of switching how we think about it. But it doesn't change the action, it changes the energy. And which changes the experience, how we experience it, right? So yeah, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing that. I really appreciate it. I'm going to close this out by just any final thoughts. Oh, and the golden nugget that I ask people to share. You know, what's that? If you could share one sort of bit of wisdom with our audience, what would that be?
Oh my goodness. I guess make art. Whatever that means to you. You know, it could be if you make a living making art, you know, do that. Be on stage. Go to make a painting, whatever it is that you do. And also we can make art in different ways. So you can cook a really amazing meal and make that an artistic thing. You can go bird watching, you can garden, you know, whatever it is you can paint your nails, like whatever is art making. Art is so healing. And at the end of the day, at the end of our life, I think we will remember our experiences more than we will remember our things, or we will remember what Netflix shows that we binged, you know. So make art. Yeah.
And the experience of making, right? We are generative creative beings. However, and when you said about teaching art to acting or theater to non-majors, it is my very favorite thing to teach. because other than leadership, because it is exactly what you said, getting people who don't necessarily have the framework for themselves as creative to understand how they can use their inherent creative gifts in whatever way they choose. One example I often used to give is there was a story of a nurse that she was in the OBGYN delivery ward. She was a delivery nurse. She helped babies come into the world. And she started recognizing that her environment was not ideal for these moms and these babies, like in the families. It just wasn't feeling like it was welcoming and supportive, and it was very clinical and cold. And so she kind of just sketched out on a napkin, I wonder what would it be like if it looked like this? And what if the program kind of supported this area of the birth experience? And what if there's a window here and this kind of textile here or whatever? And she just sort of like, literally back of an envelope designed it. And she took it to her department head, who then took it with her to the head of the hospital. And, so many years later, this one idea that she had, or this set of ideas she had, was instituted all over the country
oh my goodness,
all over the country. And so there's somebody who probably didn't identify herself as creative necessarily, but she saw the whole, right? She saw the whole to run through. And she was kind of generating some ideas based on her experience and what she was observing. And she changed, how many lives has she changed?
Yeah.
So I love that story, because it's not about the way or the art that you make, or even the way in which you make art or create. It is that you do it.
Yes.
It's just the doing of it. That's it.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you, Brittany. Thank you so much for coming today. I always love connecting with you. You're such a joy and a light. And how will people get a hold of you when you come back to the Hudson Valley, or they reach out to you in the meantime and they want to talk about your network and the work that you're doing here? How do they connect with you?
You can connect with me through my website, www.brittanyproia.art, or my email, my first name, brittany.proia@gmail.com.
brittanyproia.art. All right. There, it's in the comments. Thank you once again. I'm going to say goodbye, and I hope you come back. We'll talk more about your projects.
Thank you so much.
All righty. All right, everybody. Thank you so much again for joining us on Leadership Live Friday. If you're catching it here live or on the replay, I always appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for contributing your energy, your time, your resources, your ideas, your comments, your questions. If you have more questions for Brittany or for me about anything we talked about today, or anything at all around leadership and creativity, please go ahead and put that in the comments. We always come back around and address those afterwards. And if you have interest in finding out more about how leadership can play a role in your life and in your work environment, or in creating a life of meaning and purpose for you and for those you serve, please visit us at Master of One Coaching, all spelled out, masterofonecoaching.com. You can join our newsletter there and get tips and tricks during the week, and also the notifications for our live that we do here every week, and our wonderful, amazing guests. And also our blog posts are there. You can find resources about all the work that we do. So come join us there, and we'll see you next week. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend, everybody.